The Gundam Build Divers anime series comes to a close. Does it live up to the hype of the legendary franchise, or does it crash and burn? Hello my fellow Gunpla battlers, it's time to take a look at the final two episodes of Gundam Build Divers, and I actually find myself being relieved. Relieved that the series is finally over. I have to be perfectly honest with you guys. I didn't care for Gundam Build Divers all that much. Initially, as the series began, my hype levels were through the roof. I absolutely love Gundam Build Fighters, and I think that Gundam Build Fighters Try is a pretty solid sequel to the original. Not as good, but still very watchable and had some amazing characters and arguably some of the greatest battles that we've seen from the franchise. Then we got to Gundam Build Divers, a show that I really was expecting a lot from. I thought that this was going to be sort of like the final hurrah for the Build Fighters spin-off series, and it ended up being something completely different, and ultimately at the end of the day felt kind of like a hollow experience. That's the only way that I can really view this one right here. I really didn't get attached to any of the characters. A lot of the battles are completely unremarkable, and the way that the final episode ends is just an excuse to see all the characters come together to fight against a giant nameless enemy. That being said, the final two episodes of the series did deliver on some pretty fun action moments, but nothing that's going to reinvent the Gundam wheel, so to speak. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. These two episodes right here are basically the full conclusion to the entire series. The first episode that we're going to be talking about is the one where we finally get the big showdown between Riku and Kyoya Kujo, the champion, and it's arguably been the biggest battle they've been building up the entire series. Even though there was something of a pseudo-rivalry between him and Ogre, they don't even really get to have a final fight, but what is really awesome is that these two characters do get to team up against the champion, and ultimately, they make fools out of him, and this is a pretty intense battle, but again, it just doesn't do enough new to actually grab me, especially considering how much they just continue to reuse a lot of animation, and considering that this is like the Penyu Ultimate Gunpla battle of the series, which is to say this is going to be the final time we're going to see characters in the series actually having like a somewhat traditional Gunpla battle, it's just kind of meh. It just sort of ends right there, and I have to admit I am a little disappointed with that, but I still loved how when Riku actually won, he reunites with Sarah by deactivating his Gunpla, falling out of the sky, and then jumping into her arms. It was a sweet moment, I actually have to admit, and seeing the two characters finally reunite was really awesome, and it really got my hopes up for the final episode of the series, because I was thinking, well, they saved Sarah, what else could they do for the rest of the series? It looks like we're just going to have a happy ending, and nothing bad could possibly go wrong, except that it actually does. Because Sarah is still in this world, the bugs are starting to take over and accumulate and transform into these giant Gunpla snake dragon monster things. I don't even know how to describe them. They kind of remind me of the Devil Gundam in some senses, but they go around the entire GBN world, basically sucking it dry, taking all of its energy away, and it's only a matter of time before GBN is no more. Basically, this is an excuse to see all of the characters come together to fight these things and take them down, and that's exactly what they do. A lot of it, again, is filled with reused animation and a lot of stuff that we've seen before, but there are some unique things here. I do like the fact that there's this scene that is so insane, I can't believe they only saved it for the last episode. We already know that Riku has the ability to transform weapons, but he can actually transform an entire Gunpla. Kyoya Kujo decides to help out in the final battle because he's a super nice guy, and then Riku actually transforms his entire mobile suit into basically like a giant sword weapon, which has the remarkable ability to be just like every other sword weapon in the series. Look, I like the idea of being able to transform these Gunpla into very specific weapons, but if you're not going to do anything new with it, it doesn't really do anything. And again, they end up defeating this monster, they save Sarah, they put her in a weird little plastic Gunpla body so that she can live in real life and hang out with her friends, and we even get to see everybody in real life, which might be the best thing about the finale. Actually getting to see these characters in real life. They're exactly the way that I actually pictured them. Tiger Wolf is this big, burly guy, Shariar is some rich prince from another kingdom, Maggie looks closest to his actual personification in the GBN, and then you have the champion, who looks suspiciously like Meijin Kawaguchi from the original Gundam Build Fighters and from Tri. I'm sure it's a nice homage to that character in the fact that he's like the cream of the veritable crop of everything that is the Gunpla world, but basically, everybody here gets together, they click drinks together, no alcohol for the children, and that's the end of the episode. Oh, there is the whole thing of Sarah being able to actually go back into the GBN world, and she even has her very own Gunpla, but it's not so much a Gunpla as is basically just a giant mech that's in the shape of her. She reunites with Riku, everybody jacks each other off, and that's the end of the series. So what's the rundown on the final 2 episodes of Gundam Build Divers? You could probably tell from my tone that I'm just not too thrilled with the way that this entire series went. I can honestly say that I know my Gundam. I've watched every single series, I have a huge collection of it on DVD and Blu-ray, and I've even reviewed a number of series at this point. And even though I took a lot of issue with Reikengista and G for the fact that its story made no fucking sense whatsoever, it still had some really beautiful animation and some amazing imagery to look at. This series just sort of like falters on every single thing. Like the characterization, the action, just the building of the world, which it almost seemed a little too focused with to the point where they didn't even care about the characters that much, but they never fully followed through on everything. It was just kind of like, here's something you can do in GBN, a bad thing happens, we fight it, rinse, repeat until the next episode. Don't worry, you'll get your story arc in the final 3 episodes of the series. That's the way that it actually felt to me, and in that sense, it was a massive disappointment, and when compared to the 2 previous seasons of Gundam Build Fighters, it just doesn't compare. A lot of people have been telling me, don't compare it to the previous shows. It's got Gundam in the title. I'm gonna compare it to some other Gundam anime series. That's just the way that's gonna be. It's a part of a storied anime franchise that's been around since the friggin' 70s. I'm going to make comparisons, especially considering that I consider the Gundam franchise to be one of the greatest in all of anime history. I hold it to a very high standard. And what I loved about Gundam Build Fighters is how it didn't talk down to its audience. I mean, it was still basically a commercial to sell Gunpla and Gundam models and do all that stuff, but it still had a lot of heart behind it. The characters actually had pathos. You got to see them grow and change into different people. You look at Riku in this series, who is just an absolute blank slate of a character, and in many ways, you know, you could attach yourself to that character. You could live vicariously through him. I see that as being extremely narcissistic, but that's my weird sort of warped sense of view on that. Otherwise, Riku's a boring character. There's not much to him. I couldn't tell you much about him, and there isn't even really like a good final moment between him and Sarah. It doesn't really go anywhere. They're just friends and they get reunited and that's it. There's not much more to their relationship, and I found that kind of shallow, kind of like the entire series. The only thing that completely saves Gundam Build Divers, in my humble opinion, is the fact that some of the battles are fun, some of the mobile suit and Gundam designs are really inventive and unique, and there are some funny and unique moments from the show, but for the most part, they are few and far between, and this anime series is honestly as average as it comes. It's not bad. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen before. Trust me, I've seen some really shitty anime. But as far as like Gundam anime series goes, this one is just meh. It's just a 3 out of 5, pure average, middle of the road, not doing anything new, and not having enough fun with its premise. I also take issue with the fact that in the final episode, the like best animated scene, the moment that made me go, oh yeah, that's what I've been waiting for, some really awesome, over-the-top and exaggerated anime action, didn't even come from the main character. It came from Rommel, the little freaking weasel. Like, there was a scene where he was attacking this, like, giant thing, and they went crazy with the angles and the motion, and they even, like put some blur and some shading in there that made it look really different and distinctive from the other action scenes that we saw in the episode. And it looked great, but then they don't do anything for Riku. Or, like, anything really all that special. Yeah, he transformed Kyoya Kujo's Gunpla into a sword, but again, it was just a sword. It didn't really do anything else new, and they took out the enemies, and that was it. It was just an excuse to see characters together. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because I do love the Gundam series. It's something that has really been, I would say, almost like, next to Dragon Ball, the thing that got me into anime in the first place. And it's something that I'm very protective of, and it's something that I really care about. And to see them put out a product like this, which frankly just wasn't all that great, just leads me to believe that they just thought, well, we're just going to put out a filler Gundam until we wait for the next one. We can maybe sell some model kits along the way. That's the feeling I got from this series. And a lot of it still has to do with the characters, who I feel are just entirely one-dimensional and don't really grow as characters, to say the least. The one I think who got the most development was Yuki, and without a doubt I think he would have been a much more interesting character than Riku, if only for the fact that he's not like the typical protagonist. He's kind of a geeky character, but he still, like, did so much more in terms of development than Riku actually did. And I love that we actually got to see more of his gunpla in action, which I think is one of the coolest looking of the series. There is a scene in the final episode where he, like, fires all of these lasers at once, and my god, does it look so awesome. I wish we could have seen more than just that one little 2 seconds of it. That would have been pretty freaking awesome, but no, they waited to hold on to it until the final couple episodes of the series. Just, I don't know, I would have done things a little differently. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here, because clearly this is a very negative review. But again, I need to stress that this is not the worst anime I've ever seen. It's not the worst Gundam anime, in my opinion. I still think it's very watchable. It just sucks to know that it's so painfully average. But for what it was, Gundam Build Divers did not live up to my expectations, and that's a shame, because if you go back and you look at my reviews of Gundam Build Fighters and Try, almost every review I'm glowing and so happy. And this one right here just there it is, just not too thrilled. So the final 2 episodes are a 3 out of 5. The entire series overall, I think, is a 3 out of 5. I think some of my initial reviews were a little too forgiving of it, because I was just like, it's okay, it's early on in the series. They're going to hit a few rough patches, and then eventually it'll get back to that super epicness that I remember from the Gundam franchise and from Gundam Build Fighters. But no, Gundam Build Divers wanted to do its own thing, and it was running with scissors the entire time. That's my thoughts on the finale. I'm sorry if you're disappointed that I did not enjoy this series. More importantly, I would love to hear from you guys. Even though I did not like this show, what did you guys like about it? What did you not like about it? Tell me about your feelings about Gundam Build Divers, what you thought about the finale, the final episode of the series, and what you hope to see from the future of the Gundam anime franchise. I know we got a sequel to Unicorn coming out, which looks all sorts of incredible. There's a possibility we'll get more Gundam Build in the future. I know that the ratings have been kind of tanking a little bit in Japan, so that's kind of a shame, but honestly, look at the show. This is the result of it right here. But again, I want to hear from you guys. Tell me all your thoughts. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section below. I'm sorry if I disappointed you with this review, but it's just my honest thoughts. I can't lie. I just don't like this series that much. So there it is. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Make sure to stay tuned for the channel for tons of other anime and manga reviews. And whenever the next big Gundam anime series is going to come out, I can promise you I will be there to check it out and give my thoughts on it. I'm always hopeful for more Gundam in the future. So there we are. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay down there, baby.